Thank you very much. I'm not sure if you were able to hear what was just said by Ms. Jones, but she's telling me that there are 84 people this morning who have been examined by U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services who have taken the appropriate test, passed the test, and are eligible to be naturalized as citizens of the United States. So as we begin, I'd like to just make a few remarks. I've got about an hour-long speech that I'm going to give you. That was a joke, see? But I do want to tell you that this is an exciting day. It's a day that we gather to celebrate. We do that because each of you has made one of the most important decisions you will make in your entire life. You've chosen to become a citizen of the United States of America. Now, you cannot pick up a newspaper these days or watch television or go online for very long without seeing or reading something about the issue of immigration and citizenship. And we all know that this can be a very controversial and at times divisive issue in our country. People have very strong feelings about this subject, and sometimes it almost seems like we will never reach a national consensus on the issue of immigration. But one of the things that has been the hallmark of the United States is that when we disagree about things, we keep on talking, and we keep on exchanging views until we finally are able to work together to come to a consensus. But if you listen to all the public discourse and controversy about the subject of immigration, you'll find that there is no controversy whatsoever about what you are doing here today. This is a day we celebrate. And I think it's important as we come together this morning to think back on our history a little bit. This is actually, the United States actually is a very young country compared to some of the nations from which you have come. We are only 243 years old. When the United States was formed, every single person in this country was actually a citizen of somewhere else. And those people did what you did. They left their homeland to become a citizen of this nation. And so from the very beginning, the United States has grown and flourished because people have done what you have done. They've left their homeland, they've come here seeking a new opportunity. From the very beginning, the United States has continued to grow and continued to prosper because we have welcomed people who have done what you have done, which is to pursue a path to citizenship through the proper legal process. And so from the very beginning, the United States has recognized that our nation actually becomes a stronger nation. Add new citizens who bring their own fresh energy, their own cultural traditions, their willingness to abide by the law of the land, and they wish to join in this nation. So today, the United States of America becomes a stronger nation because you will be added as citizens. Now, each of you has a unique background. You have brought your own special talents and abilities to the country. Some of you have been here for many years and have chosen. Some of you may be in business, some may be students, some may play sports for a living. We just happen to have someone here who is able to play sports for a living today, which we'll hear about later. But everybody comes from a unique background. And so even those of you who are still in school and trying to chart your course for the future, you will decide what you can add to this country. Everybody's different, and you'll find different ways to apply your gifts and your talents to make this a better nation. Now, with all of the rights and privileges of citizenship do come some responsibilities that we have to face up to. As new citizens, it will be your responsibility to make this nation a better place than it was when you arrived. You do that by abiding by the rule of law. You do that by exercising your right to vote every single time the polls are open. You'll have the opportunity to register to vote today. You make the nation a stronger place by serving in the military when called upon. You do it by paying your taxes, something we all really like doing. You make the nation a stronger place by serving in your community. You also make the nation a better place by willingly serving on a jury when you're called on to do that. Now, as a judge, I'm particularly partial to people who come and serve on juries, and I want to encourage you to do that. I like to tell a story about the most famous person who used to work down the street at what was Quicken Loans Arena. Now, who is the most famous person who worked at Quicken Loans Arena?
LeBron James.
LeBron James, right. Anybody ever hear of LeBron James? Well, Before I started working in this court 3 years ago, I was a judge in Summit County down in Akron. And I'll never forget the day when I walked into court and my bailiff said, "Judge, we have a jury trial today and LeBron James is going to be on your jury." And I thought, oh, isn't that great? Actually, what happened is that he was summoned for jury service, just like the rest of us, and he came down and sat in the jury assembly room for 3 hours, just like everyone else. Now, he had to adjust the schedule so he could do it during the off season, but when LeBron James received a jury summons, he came in to serve. And I can tell you, as someone who has seen many, many jury trials, people who serve on juries always tell me after the case is over that they're really glad they do it. So I do want to encourage you to serve on the jury when you get a chance to do that. Now, one of the interesting things about becoming a citizen of the United States is that you get a chance to allow old national conflicts to fade. Very often in this room we have people from, say, Iraq and Syria becoming new citizens with somebody from Israel, or somebody from China becoming a new citizen with someone from Japan or Korea. And what we have found is that as Americans, we all share a common goal of making this nation a better place. I'd like to share a quick story about a man that used to work in this court who took that as his goal. There was a gentleman who retired here about 2 years ago. He was the chief financial officer for this court, and he had served in that way for 20 years. Before that, he worked for a bank for 20 years, so he had a 40-year career here in the United States. We had a retirement ceremony from him, and we asked him to say a few words, and when he gave his remarks, he said that the thing he was most proud of was not the job he held or the money he had earned or the responsibilities that he had been given. The thing he was most proud of was that he had become a naturalized citizen of the United States. And he had made it his goal during his entire time in the U.S. To try to make the nation a better place and to give back to the country. And those weren't just words, because another man came to this retirement ceremony to give this gentleman an award. What made it interesting is that the man who was getting the award and who was retiring was from the former Yugoslavia. He was Caucasian. And the award he was given came from a man who was African American. And the award was for helping to rebuild a church that had been burned in some, I guess, arson. So it was really interesting because the man that got the award because he served a church of people he did not even know. And so what I want to encourage you to do is to take the same goal he had, to try to make America a better place and give back to this country every single day. And if you do that, and if you do it the way he did, and you respect all people, regardless of their backgrounds or where they're from, their religion, their ethnic heritage, whatever the case might be, you too can have a rich and rewarding time in the United States. So what I want you to do is, when I ask you to stand in a allegiance today, I want you to see the picture that will be before your eyes. Diverse and beautiful group of people. So on behalf of the other judges in the court, all of the literally millions and millions of people who are longtime citizens, I congratulate you on this wonderful achievement. You've taken and passed the test that a lot of adults in the United States might not be able to pass right now. But it's a great achievement becoming a citizen of the United States, and I want to welcome you to citizenship in this country. Right, with those things having been said, we have now reached the point in time where we will administer the allegiance. So I'm going to ask those 84 people who will be taking the oath to now please stand in preparation to take the oath. So before I ask you to raise your right hands and listen to and take the oath, I do want you to just take a moment and look around. Look how different this group of people is. This is the best picture of all sitting up here. So, to raise your right hand, I will recite. Say, so please raise your right hand. You and each of you hereby declare on oath that you will absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentate, state, or sovereignty, of whom or which you have heretofore been a subject or citizen. That you will support and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. That you will bear arms on behalf of the United States when required by the law. That you will perform non-combatant service in the armed forces of the United States when required by law. That you will perform work of national importance under civilian direction when required by the law. And you take an obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. So help you God. If so, please signify by saying, I do. Congratulations. All right, you can go and describe what we're going to do next. We have 84 new United States citizens who've just taken the oath of allegiance. It's the taking of the oath that makes you a citizen of the United States. You passed the test, you did all the other things, but it's when you took that oath that you officially became a citizen. We will recognize your new status by calling you up here one at a time and handing you your certificate of naturalization. So if you give us a moment to line up front, someone from Citizenship and Immigration Services will call your name. You'll come up, I'll hand you the certificate, and others will also hand you things as well. And then I'll ask you to return to your seat. And then when everyone is done receiving their certificate, at the end, we'll have time to take a few pictures if you would like a picture. So please hold off taking the photos at the beginning, and we'll do photos at the end just to keep the process moving. But those things will line up and get ready to go.
Ed Ocampo from the Philippines. Inam Saud from Jordan. Daria Pliuta from Kazakhstan. Sylvain Carbonell from France. Vitali Mamaliga from Moldova. Jiarong Mai from China. Natalia Folova from Russia. Wai Chan from Hong Kong. Yahya Ibrahim from Sudan.
Okay, picture. It's a cute picture.
Joey Proesning from Belgium. Jurti Hoka from Albania. Lorette Eteko from Congo. Adriana Rodriguez Bertanesian from Argentina. Mandeep Chima from Canada. Alfredo Rivero from Venezuela. Amal Ayad from Jordan. Mary Balone from Cameroon. Sita Kumari from Asma Ibrahim from Jordan.
Thank you.
Jack Joseph Russell from the United Kingdom. John Pizon Atoll from the Philippines. Despina Sarantopoulou from Greece. Anna Sayedzeva from Russia. Adam Ali from Sudan. Tomas Pony from Hungary. Aruslevan Binyagam from India. Subramanian from India. Jili Li from China. Saleh Abdul Rahman from Yemen. Ariel Haft from Canada. Salih Abdel Rahman from Sudan. Yasul Kwan from South Korea. Jay Tran from Vietnam. Bilal Tariq from Pakistan. Sergio Martinez Rios from Mexico. Dorina Kupari from Albania. Pushpa Raseli from Bhutan. Atum Krenjak from Croatia. Khadija Amar from Morocco. Ashway Tinsway from Burma. Olympia Bertzies from Poland. Marichu Resume Duncan from the Philippines. Thatch Nugent from Vietnam. Herbert Clark from Jamaica. Amir Abdallah from Jordan. Fei Chen from China. Ivana Vikovic from Montenegro. Purna Bishwa from Bhutan. Igor Mihus from Ukraine. Rosita Farkas from Hungary. Elisa Plakiti from Ukraine. Oltion Sinaj from Albania. Jose Cifuentes Flores from El Salvador. Maylin Ramirez Alcantara from the Dominican Republic. Marina Adewala from Egypt. Surjangshu Mukherjee from India. Julio Gomez from Mexico. Kamal Jamoun from Lebanon. Randa Webby from Lebanon. Patricia Davis from United Kingdom. Rajit Shrestha from Nepal. Priya Shrestha from Nepal. Georges Haber from France. Sean Lawrence from South Africa. Tran Nugent from Vietnam. Swapna Sharalaja from India. Ilham Adasari from Saudi Arabia. Katrine Broek from Belgium. Mohammed Amar from Egypt. Ka Tu from Burma. Ziyu Zhao from China. Isol Bajrami from Albania. Wei Wei Zhao from China. Durio Kadka from Bhutan. Tila Kadka from Bhutan. Gayamrai. Yamrai. Ranju Chiteri from Nepal. Miriam Rad from Iraq. Fatuma Ahmed from Somalia. Ala Soliman from Egypt. Anil Boba from India. And Carlos Santana from the Dominican Republic. Congratulations.
Ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude today's ceremony. It is not every day we get a player from the Cleveland Indians to come to be with us, but this ceremony is special because of each of you, and I think Carlos would acknowledge that. Everyone has gone through extensive preparations to be here today, and we want to congratulate you again. And please do be sure to take a moment to register to vote if you haven't already gotten the paperwork to do that. Do that before you leave today. The polls will be open in May. So you might have to wait until November because of the 30-day waiting period, but we have rules. Anyways, congratulations again. Get a picture with your family. Come on up.
Guys ready? Three, and judge. Carlos, lower that a little bit so I see David. Okay, good. And thanks, guys. Okay.
Sure. You gotta go in the hall.
talked to them like 2 days ago, and they're like, yeah, it's no problem.
Yeah, they took mine away when I got here too.
Are we going outside?
They put mine away too, but
I was surprised.
I thought it was close enough. They didn't even know who the judge was because they had the wrong.
Here's a victim for a lot of people in
They don't seem very happy about it.
Huh?
They don't seem very happy about it. They don't want to drive me.
Right.
I bet you a year or two ago. Yeah. Here's your headshot.
Oh,
They
yeah,
got a good
yeah.
So if you guys want to do a picture, I got my camera. They wouldn't let me bring it in here. So if we can go by the metal detectors, we can get a shot of all you guys together. I just want to get a picture for you guys.
And Jonathan will share.
I appreciate it. He gave me his card.
Hey, I'll share whatever.
I appreciate it, man.
Of course.
I'll send you an email when I get back in the office.
So I was thinking, like that sign that used to be like for LeBron James. That would be kind of fun. It's just like that banner.
I think so.
Absolutely, Chester. Any 4 people in total becoming U.S. citizens today, including the Cleveland Indians. Carlos Santana, he's here with his wife, 2 daughters, and his son.
Oh, that's the folder key.
Over on my coffee.
Moving out.
Like 2 entrances down. Just walking up this way. Long story. Yeah, long story. But long story. Don't make it.
We're going this way.
Yes. Guys, couple more. Oh, beautiful. Carlos, snip her, and then maybe she'll smile. Like this. This more? Okay. Alright, she's not giving up. We're okay. Okay, we'll get more later. She's hungry, happy. Oh. Uh-oh, she kicked her sister in the face. One more, Sammy. David. Okay, we got one in there. Okay, cool.
Smile. Smile. Thumbs
Yeah.
up, Chief. Smile.
That's good. Okay. Cool. Okay. Let's look at it.
Smile, puppy. Smile, puppy. Smile, puppy. Hey, puppy.
Thank you. Is he gonna talk out here?
Huh?
Is he gonna talk to the media?
Sure.
Yep.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you guys have any media? Or is that it? Do you guys have to say anything? Because there's like media people here. Like, are they taping you or saying something?
Do you want to say thank you to Cleveland for giving me an opportunity?
This is live. This is live.
Do you mind telling us a little bit about why becoming a citizen was so important to you?
Oh yeah. Especially like my family, my wife, they from here, so I mean, I'm happy for that. So, and thank you for Cleveland for giving me opportunity and part to my resident city, and I'm proud and happy for that.
How are you feeling after the ceremony, Carlos?
Feel happy. I'm really scared when I come here, but now everything is positive, and I'm happy and excited.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who was here? Was yours? Your mom? No, he's my best friend. I'm happy for that. So I hope and I'm getting home run today for the special day.
Did you sleep well last night?
Yeah, I'm sleeping. I was sleeping before when I'm taking the test. This is a thing I'm sleeping, but and I'm sleeping good, relaxed and happy, and God bless you.
Said you were nervous before coming in here today.
Little bit.
What were you nervous about?
Little bit nervous because a lot of things, and I'm coming from to Dominican and now I'm American. So,
How old's your little one here?
oh, this is 1,
One.
3, and 8.
They're so cute.
Oh, thank you.
They're so
Are you tired, Mom? Yeah, he's down here.
We actually have a game tonight.
Yeah, I have a game tonight, and I have but you getting on road for a special day.
How does it really feel now that everything is over?